The combat beta version 3 is here, and I spent a few hours trying out each of the combat styles to see how these changes were progressing. We only have one beta left, which will be next week, so we're getting much closer to the actual version that will enter the live game. And some of my first impressions is that combat is very powerful. But first, let's look at some of the changes that were added in this beta. So the first important thing to note is that the launch of the combat beta has been delayed 1 week. It was going to be on February 23rd, which is literally like 1 week from now. So they did push it back an extra week. We'll see it at the beginning of March. I think this is a good change. I was a bit worried about how fast they were working on this and going to put out this update. Like, this is a huge update. It's going to impact the game drastically. So I am glad they're taking a little bit more time to balance some things, iron some things out. So we will see that on March 2nd. For this beta specifically, they have been focusing more on melee and some changes there. The first beta was more ranged, and range seems fairly polished now and probably won't see too many changes left. Same with magic. And then this beta is just melee, so maybe they make some more changes, but it looks like we're getting much closer to that final version. So with melee, they have made some pretty cool changes. They have listened to feedback, and they have removed some of the just regular abilities and moved them back to basics. So for example, Chaos Roar is now a basic ability again. It will generate adrenaline, and same with Punish. They also tweaked the way Bloodlust stacks are gained. So Punish used to gain or generate 4, now it's back to just 1. So all your basic abilities will be generating some Bloodlust stacks. All of them give 1, except for the Rend ability, which is the old Smash icon. So you will be generating Bloodlust up to 4 stacks. Now, Berserk, whenever you pop that, it will actually increase your maximum number of stacks by 4, and it will generate 4. So, you know, if I used it right now, I just get 8 Bloodlust stacks, an extra 4 of them. Now, with the Bloodlust stacks, you can spend them a few different ways. There's Assault, which consumes 4 of them. You get a little bit of healing, so 275 life points plus 4% of damage dealt, which isn't a whole lot. There's Hurricane, which you can also consume 4 stacks to deal an extra hit. So that could be useful in some AoE scenarios. Now, one really nice synergy with the Bloodlust stacks is with the Flurry ability. So it does consume 4 stacks, but it deals an extra 2% damage for each 1% life points you're missing, up to a maximum of 50%. So the wording is a little unclear there, but I'm assuming if you're missing 25% of your life points, then this is going to be dealing 50% more damage. So it is kind of nice because if you use it within your Berserk rotation and switch to your dual wield weapons, you can see that the Berserk timer, it no longer goes down. So it pauses your Berserk timer within your Greater Flurry, which is really good. And it's just crazy how much adrenaline you can gain in this style. Like with Meteor Strike, I feel like I'm just constantly using my EOF and Overpower, and it's just ridiculous how much damage you can deal within a short amount of time. And it does make melee very fun. The burst damage from melee is kind of crazy. When you're within the Meteor Strike cooldown and your Berserk cooldown, you can deal insane damage, especially with the Zuck Sword. And as someone who doesn't really use melee and sadly just uses Necromancy right now, melee does seem appealing. Like, it seems to synergize really well. A lot of it makes sense. It's not overly complicated. The Zuck Sword does have a really simple special attack, which maybe is a little bit of a downfall, but it's just easy damage. You use it every minute. You can use it right after your Chaos Roar for just a crazy amount of damage. And it is just a really fun style to use, just with how much damage you're dealing. The adrenaline gain is insane. So I really enjoyed using melee, and might be a style I continue to use in the main game. Range didn't see too many changes from the previous beta, but a few changes were made. They did change the Imbue Gales to Gale Shot, so it now actually does an attack. It does make it a little bit better to use, and I think with ranged, I was feeling that there's just a lot of self buffs that you're applying. You know, greater depth swiftness, you'd use your imbue shadows, your imbue gales, and it's just constantly applying these buffs. So I like that they changed this to an actual attack, but still the imbue shadows is a self buff, and makes sense. It's a really powerful ability, and you gain a ton of adrenaline with it. They did change a few other things as well. So they did change Shadow Tendrils slightly. It does extend the duration of Shadow Imbued, so that's another pretty good ability to use within your Depth Swiftness and Shadow Imbued timers. They did improve Bombardment slightly. It now deals a little bit more damage, and within that 2-tile range, which they changed last week. They did increase the cost of Rapid Fire from 20% to 25%. I think this is fine. I was actually expecting that it would be a 25% adren cost going into the first beta, so that part makes sense. But what's really nice, you can see I don't have any fleeting boots on. You can now use rapid fire, and you can move around and still use it without fleeting boots. So they are going to change how fleeting boots work, but I think that's nice. You know, you shouldn't have to completely change your gameplay after getting an unlock like that. So it's nice that you can now just use that while moving around. Another change was Corruption Shot. So like I said, they are moving away from just regular abilities because players didn't like that. So Corruption Shot now costs some adrenaline. They did increase the damage numbers from it, so it makes it worth using, but still it is increased. And I don't think has too many uses aside from just tagging some enemies as an AoE kind of ability. And then they made a few changes as well to Decimation and Chinchompas. So when trying out ranged on a few bosses, I found that it was still really powerful, more powerful than the live game. Some of it is still complex, like there's still all the EOF switches and everything, so it is still a difficult style to get into, and there's a lot of stacks to keep track of. But the Imbue Gales, Imbue Shadows abilities work really well, and it does synergize really well with the theme of the multi-hit abilities, so I really did like that part of it. You can see that range still has its burst damage, especially going into Split Soul. So that part is really fun. You know, you can get that quick Rakshas skip, and I should mention I'm not that great at ranged right now either, so people could do this much better, but it is a fun style to use. Personally, one thing I was hoping they would work on with these betas is removing some of the switchscape within the ranged combat style. Just the fact that you need so many different EOFs, and you're tracking all of the arrows and you switch arrows to get optimal damage, it does make the style very intimidating to use. And I was hoping that they would maybe simplify things a little bit. I do know some players like that ranged has so much skill expression to it, but I think just something as easy as, instead of putting your Eldritch Crossbow in an EOF, somehow turning that into just an ability that you can use, so there's no more switching to an EOF. I think that alone would be huge, and it would really help. So I would like to see something like that personally, but still, ranged is a pretty fun combat style to use, and the synergies work really well. I like what they're doing by really creating a core identity with all these styles. Magic didn't see very many changes in this iteration of the beta. They did, however, change the combustibility back to a basic ability, reduce some of the damage, and extended the duration for each hit. So that was a small change, just that idea that they're moving some of those abilities back to basics, and they changed Corruption Blast. It was just a regular ability. Now it costs some adrenaline, and the damage is increased, just like with Corruption Shot for ranged. Magma Tempest saw the adrenaline cost reduce from 25 to 20%, and they also improved the damage from chains a little bit. But overall, Magic does seem to be fleshed out fairly well. Magic's probably the style I am least familiar with, so I don't have too much to say about this, but you know, they really do lean into the crit build. And probably something to say that I did get, well, I tried Vindicta on with all three combat styles, and the PB I got was with Magic, where I have the least amount of experience. But the synergies within Magic and really leaning into that crit build seem really good and really fun. I would be a bit concerned that Magic might be overtuned, and I see a lot of feedback that people are giving, and they're like talking about how, you know, Magma Tempest isn't worth using at 20% adrenaline. It's just not good enough. Or like Corruption Blast not being really worth it anymore. And I kind of think, like, well, should you buff those abilities, or is it just because every other ability is too overpowered? So I am a bit concerned about the power creep that might be coming into the game because of this update. Sure, we don't have auras anymore, and yes, you know, the combat styles need to be a little bit more powerful to compensate the removal of auras, but I don't really know these styles very well, and I am getting some pretty good PBs with them. Sure, my PBs are probably mostly with Necromancy, but still, I mean, it seems to be very, very powerful, and just from some other players, hearing them talk about it and their feedback on the beta, I mean, it all seems to be pretty good, but it does seem that players always advocate for abilities being stronger and stronger, and a lot of those suggestions are being put into place. I know the goal with the beta is to make the styles much stronger in the earlier and mid game, but the end game have them just, you know, a little bit of power creep, because I don't think there's any way to go around that. But I am a bit concerned that maybe it's a bit too much, and I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Overall though, with the 3 combat styles so far, I probably enjoyed melee the most. Being within melee distance always sucks, but the burst damage and the adrenaline gain is extremely fun, and a lot of the rotations seem to make a lot of sense for me, and I'm someone who doesn't really use melee. I have been using Necromancy almost exclusively since it came out, and before that I used ranged. So I think my perspective is maybe more as a newer player trying to learn the styles, and melee seems to be fairly simple, and part of that is just that the Zuck sword has a pretty simple special mechanic. There's not too many switches you need to do, whereas with ranged, you're keeping track of all the different stacks, the switches, the bulk stacks, and Magic also has some complexities, at least for newer players or players getting into Magic, just because there's so many items or things that you need to improve your critical strike chance, and that's essential to Magic's build. So that part is also a bit complicated, but nowhere near to the complexity of ranged. And I think it is fine to have styles with different complexities. Like, some people would really love ranged because they want that skill expression to track all these things and deal optimal damage. So I think that part's fine, and I think the beta is going in the right direction. Like, it is making combat simpler to use. Right now, I am a bit intimidated with melee in the main game, but these changes seem to make sense and make melee an easier combat style to use for someone like myself who doesn't really touch melee in the main game. So overall, I'm excited for these changes, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think and what styles you're preferring right now in the beta.